Hi everyone, good evening. We have started about 7 minutes late, and I'm sure you will forgive us for those 7 minutes because as most of you are our students and you know we keep busy teaching you, right? Okay, so we're going to start with the AILET 2022 exam analysis. Now, I'm sure most of you felt the paper was comme ci comme ça, which means so-so. Some sections were easy, some sections were tough. You had very few questions in LR, you had a lot of questions in critical reasoning. The RCs were probably a little tougher than last year. So while you may have taken some last year tests, or the previous years, you may have found them a little tough. So clearly no one could have solved all the 50 questions in the 90 minutes. Can you hear me? I got muted at some stage. I'm sure you can now hear me properly. Okay. So I was talking about that the number of questions were 150 and you only had 90 minutes to solve them in. So it must have been a really tight rope. Right. So we were talking about what's supposed to be the right approach. And the correct approach or the correct way to proceed with your questions was that the first section was English. Okay. Usually it's supposed to be a little easier, but depending upon which is your strength area, it may or may not be English, but assuming that the rest of it is GK and legal and things, students may just find English comparatively easier. So the idea was to go through that section pretty fast. Now, usually, you read the first 1 or 2 sentences of every RC, see is it understandable, and then start solving it. So there were 1 or 2 RCs which were pretty bad, which should have been left alone. So I'm hoping that you guys did do that. And clearly trying to solve everything would send your time management into a tizzy. So you had to be very careful with time. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to solve the questions properly. All right. So let's start with the analysis without much ado. So I'm not going to spend too much time. I'll just keep giving you the answers, which I have noted down here. So ensuring the flush appearance on all its faces refers to the, so flush always talks about the finish of a product. Okay, how well has the product finished? So the finishing, not the variation, not the strength. And if you look at it, it's talking about how well the pieces fit together. So it's not talking about the strength, it's talking about how well they're aligned, and then the finished product looks like one smooth piece. So answer here was finishing. Some of you may have got it right or may have known it. Which option includes the correct meaning of the underlined phrase in the giving sentence? Rectangular wrought iron straps are knocked up over the joints after 2 pieces engage. Now, rectangular wrought iron straps are knocked up. So essentially, we needed to know the meaning of the phrase knocked up. Okay. So knocked up here means assembled. You can't carve it. It's wrought iron. You're not creating something from scratch. and neither are you removing it. So assembled means you already have the straps of wrought iron with you. Once you put those wooden blocks in place, you just put the wrought iron straps and screw them up. So you basically have to just assemble them. Select the reason why several illustrations of puzzles joint examples are often showcased in a volume dealing with woodwork joint. Now this one was pretty easy. Because it talks about the fact that if you look at the last part, as a rule, these puzzles should be made in hardwood. And a little above that, it's talking about how craftsmanship is very important, you know, the fourth sentence from the bottom. So therefore, D part was the answer, to foster a better understanding of the required precision and skills. The others, anyway, don't make any sense at all. We're not talking about cabinets. Choose the correct order of the following statements in the passage. Now, this was one of your easiest questions. The workman cuts out a portion at the end of each beam or joist. Two pieces are placed together to form a joint. Now, if you start reading from the top, the first thing is you cut a length, enabling the workman to produce a joint with a smooth or flush appearance on all faces. Now, if you look at the options given to you, to cut out a portion at the end of each beam. So we need one to be the first thing that the workman does. And only option A starts with that one thing. Now, if you want to just cross-check, you can look at 4 also. 4 is talking about he measures out a portion in the beam that is equal in depth to half the full depth of the beam. Now, if you continue to read that sentence a little further, you see that next sentence also. So A becomes the correct answer. Okay, so this was a pretty easy one that you all could have done and should have done correctly. Which quality makes hardwood the choice for puzzle joints? Now, the last line tells us, as a rule, these puzzles should be made in hardwood such as dark walnut or beech. As in whitewood, the joints are soon liable to wear. So which quality makes it the best choice? We don't want it to wear and tear fast. So hence C is the answer, sturdiness or density, how thick it is, how sturdy it is. Shrinkage and swelling are not spoken about, and the others don't make any sense because no reference has been made to them. All right, so this is not a question for me. This is an assumption question. Now, we will try, and so I'll skip this one for the time being. Yeah, okay, let's go to this. So this one was about animals can see colors. Do they see better than humans or worse than humans? And the experiment was done on bees because bees had been studied in great length, right? So what 2 things can best be indicated from the behavior of the bees? They remember that blue means syrup and then fly to the blue. Now that is true. The experiment did show that they fly to the blue. And why were they flying to the blue? Not because they liked the color, because initially they found syrup in the blue one. So A has to be in my answer. Now the second one says bees can distinguish blue from red. Now this also has to be correct because when syrup wasn't there, so the sense of smell wasn't working, right? Because there was no syrup to attract them. They still went to the blue, so that means they can distinguish one color from the other. They may not know it's called blue or it's called red, but they were able to distinguish. Hence, D was the correct answer. Which of the following statements is valid enough to make this experiment on bees incomplete? Now, we need something which will make the experiment false in a way, right? The experiment was that bees can see and bees can smell, and hence A and B were the answer. So now let's look at it. Perhaps the bees had really been trained to identify colors. Now, even if the bees had been trained to identify colors, the experiment would not have been incomplete if they were not trained, because we do not know right now that would they be able to smell badly or not, because the sense of smell was very good. So they may have still gone to the right syrup, right? So A does not fully render it useless. What if the bees, like humans, suffer from color blindness? Now, it doesn't really matter. As long as they can differentiate between 2 colors. Normally, color blindness is where a person sees red as green and vice versa. So let's assume it's color blindness. They can see different shades of gray or different shades of black or whatever. But they still flew to the blue one. So that means it wasn't that they were colorblind in the sense of not being able to differentiate, right? So even if they suffered from color blindness, not know which color is what, the shade difference, the tone difference would have made the experiment a success. So the correct answer should have been none of these. However, there can be a toss-up between the A and the D part. So we've gone with none of these, but let's see this one. Okay. According to the passage, which of the following is not true in the case, is not true in the case of the subjects mentioned in the study? More exact scientific research has been done on the color sense of bees than of almost any other animal. So this is true. This is not true, right? So this is given already. So A can't be my answer. Bees are attracted to flowers by their bright colors. We do not know that. They may be attracted because of the color, or they may be attracted because of the scent. So we don't know this. So maybe the answer. Let's look at the C one. Possibly it may be either color or scent that attracts the bees. This is true because we do not know for certain. And none go to the red card. This also we know that none of them went to the red card. They all went to the blue card. So the answer by default becomes the B one. So this one, some of you may have thought it's too long to read and too much of history and stuff, but the questions weren't particularly difficult. But if some of you left it, it's pretty all right. However, whenever you're planning to leave something, don't leave everything, because some questions are a cakewalk. So if we look at this one, according to the passage, which of the options accelerated the burst of inventive genius in Britain? The plethora of inventions in the spinning industry, the prevalent, so what made so many inventions suddenly come up? And clearly right in the beginning of the passage, it said because they looted India enough and all that money that they took from here helped them fund their different inventions. So the answer has to be the C part, the fund from its colony, because Britain colonized all the countries that it was ruling over. So they didn't have to mention India, but that colony was enough to tell us C is the answer. Which could be the prime attributing factor responsible for the disintegration of the Indian economy? Now, disintegration of the Indian economy is mentioned only in the last para. So the growing indebtedness among the farmer fraternity. Now, the last para is talking about farmers, so that could be a possible answer. Widespread penury. Penury, some of you may not know the meaning, it's poverty, right? So widespread poverty among the masses, not told to us that that is what led to the economic disintegration. The plight of those who were still reeling under the Mughal atrocities. No, in fact, in the penultimate para, we are told that while the Mughals were, sort of looting them or stuff like that, they still had enough to get by. They were pretty all right with those Mughals. So therefore, only A can be the answer. And that's given in the last para. The first para is a fine example of. Now, the first para, if you see, gives a lot of dates and periods and stuff, and it's going in a chronological manner, 57, then 64, then 69, right? And then it moves on to later period, 1788. So the first para is, the C has to be the answer, the C part, chronological data, because it's giving us very clearly time by time, period by period. After the permanent settlement of 1793, the turn of events, what did it do? Now, this was a direct question. If you just went back and looked at it, it's talking about the fact that after the permanent settlement, the zamindars were no longer just tax collectors. They became people who started snatching or usurping the land from the peasants who could not pay. So therefore, B part is the correct answer. Zamindars proclaiming themselves to be legal landowners. It should be one word. Okay. The passage could probably be an excerpt from. Now, this one, if you just look at the first line, economic historians have argued, and this whole thing is the economic historians arguing. And then they mention one of them, R.P. Dutt, right, amongst those. So therefore, an economic report is the closest answer, because there is nothing to tell us about the national movement. A memoir should have, I thought about this, and it should be in the past tense where somebody is recollecting something. It's not that, and it's definitely not scientific in nature. This one, while the passage seemed easy, had one or two tricky questions. And it's best to leave the tricky questions because you do not want negative marking to affect. And plus, a lot of time is spent on thinking about what should be the right answer, and you do not have that time. So the correct approach is, if I find the answer in the first go, yes. Otherwise, if it's turning out to be, I have to go back and look at 2 or 3, I'll leave it. Okay. So which of the statements do you think does not support the author's idea in the passage? A nursery school teacher's extreme attempt not to offend authorities during holiday time. That is true, because a nursery school teacher removed the T, saying that it looks too much like a cross on which Christ was sacrificed. The visible signs of festivities were not inconspicuous in America. Now read it carefully. The visible sign of festivities, if I take the not away, were inconspicuous in America. Inconspicuous means not visible, not openly visible. So that was true. When I say they were not inconspicuous, that means that they were very obvious, which is false. So B part has to be my correct answer, right? We have to think of which does not support the author. But let's just look at the balance too. Prohibition of candy canes, since they were obvious holiday shapes, is given in that last para where they talk about shepherds using candy canes. And then the conventional etiquette of the season was discouraged in public. That is mentioned when they speak about Philadelphia and a couple of other places, Kentucky also, I think, a couple of places in the US where the governor himself is not allowing festivities for Christmas. All right, question number 18. So these question numbers are very different from the question numbers that you had. But you would recall that you had these questions, so that would help you figure out what answer you gave, all right? The last sentence in the passage conveys that the writer, so now what is the last sentence in the passage? Oops, sorry. So let me remove myself from here. Okay, my Christmas in Wiltshire may have been wet, but at least it felt like a real Christmas and not like this kind of anodyne travesty, disinfected of all references to what the holiday is about. So if you had a question on anodyne, you obviously wouldn't have answered it, but let's look at question number 18. Tacitly approves of the way Christmas is approached in America. He doesn't seem to be approving it. In fact, he seems to be finding fault in it, that they're not really celebrating it so openly. Disagrees with the views and opinions of Andrew Stephen. Andrew Stephen simply says this is what's happening. So author doesn't disagree, he sort of agrees with them. Is content to have had a share of the season's revelry. Yeah, he's saying, I have had my Christmas, right? That's it. That in America, if I were there, I wouldn't have had my Christmas, but here in Wiltshire, I have had my Christmas. So he's happy and content about it. And he does not sympathize with religious minorities. There's no reference to that. Which of the following words from the passage most closely resembles the meaning of anodyne and construed? Now, this was something that you should have ideally left, at least for those of you who don't know the meaning. So anodyne is something that makes things a little calmer, soother, so therefore unobjectionable. Pernicious, jilted, menacing are all negative words. And what do you construe out of what I'm telling you? What do you interpret? So therefore, C was the correct answer for this. What parts of speech do the words religious, travesty, and temporarily belong to? Now here you need to remember some bit of your grammar. And the best way to solve these questions is to make a little sentence. Okay, so when we talk about, I'm a religious person. So religious is describing me, so therefore it should be an adjective. Travesty, now in the classes you must have been told almost all words ending in ty are always nouns. Property, travesty, any of these ty words you find, right? And mostly words ending in ly are adverbs and they describe a verb. So the first one was the correct one, adjective, noun, and adverb. Which of the following is the most appropriate title of the passage? Now this question should ideally have been left because it can be a little problematic. Title should be indicative of what I'm going to read. So Abolishing Christmas, maybe because Christmas is being abolished all over USA, according to the author. Christmas past and present. He's not talking about past and present. He's talking of present America and present Wiltshire, which I think is in UK. The ever-changing tradition of Christmas, he's not spoken about how traditions are continuously changing. Traditions are not changing. If traditions were changing, the new tradition would be celebrated everywhere, right? And transcending beliefs really can't be because it's not even talking of Christmas. So by default, again, A becomes a little closer to what you're likely to read in the passage than the other things. Now, this is about a little girl who's getting married and who's got mixed feelings, some happiness, some sadness, some fear, right? So this was easy. A couple of words may have been tough, but it was largely an easy passage. This question 22 was probably your trickiest question. It says in the passage, the people ask the narrator's mother, are they leaving today? Who are they according to the narrator and the passage? Now, the dots in between are probably distinguishing. So the left-hand side is what the narrator thought, and the right-hand side is according to the passage. So are they leaving today? So the narrator clearly thought the groom's party, because that's the one that they're keen to leave. Otherwise, she wanted her guests to stay. So it can be B or C. Now let's go to the other side. According to the passage, when people are asking, are they leaving today? They mean the bride and the groom also, because the vidai part has to be done. So the B part becomes the correct answer, because according to the passage, it's the bride, the groom, and his folks. Right? The word ululating in the passage refers to what? Shedding tears of joy. Now, ululating is actually creating a very loud sound. Sometimes in Bengali weddings, you see them doing ulul, stuff like that. So these are very loud sounds. They are produced even for sad things when someone dies, a lot of loud crying, and they are produced for very happy occasions, a lot of loud screaming. So here it's a happy thing, right? She's getting married, and right in the beginning she's written, I'm highly excited with all the ululating that will start soon. So the C part, loud sounds expressing mirth, is the correct answer. The tone and mood of the passage. So now when we're solving this question about the tone and mood of the passage, the tone and mood of the passage is depressing and emotional, satirical and depressed, introspective and empathic, vitriolic and reassuring. Now it definitely can't be B, and it definitely can't be D. Vitriolic is very loud, aggressive speeches and harsh words. So it's not that. It's definitely not a satire. No one is making fun of no one. Introspective and empathetic, it's about a child, a little girl who's getting married. So there is hardly any introspection happening. It's a narrative passage. So the tone and mood is depressing and emotional. She's leaving her parents. She's getting a little emotional. She says, I don't want to leave you. Will God come with me? And all that, right? Give the appropriate antonyms for elaborate, agony, apprehension. Okay? Antonyms. So when something is very elaborate, embellished and baroque can't be the answers. So B and D are out. Now let's look, and plus in apprehension and apprehension can't come. So definitely B and D are out, and apprehension means dismay or worry. So again, these don't fit in. Now we are left with A and C. Plain can come, solace and assuagement can come. Solicitude is very different in meaning. Apprehension is when you're worried, and repose is when you're rested. So when you're worried, you can't rest, okay? Solicitude is to do with soliciting things, so that has no connection with apprehension. So the correct answer here was the C part. Identify the type of sentence. You're a good girl, you understand everything, don't you? Now, you probably haven't done too much of this, but you may have in your schools. Otherwise, you should have left this question. The correct answer is A, it's a tag question. When they make a statement and in the end they put a question with isn't he, don't you, won't you kind of a thing, it's called a tag question because the question is tagged at the end of the statement. All right. Ideally, something that you could have left because it's a psychologist talking about therapy, specialty play therapy and stuff. So just by reading the first 2-3 lines, you know that what am I getting into? It's too psychological and I may not be able to handle it. But those of you who did do it, let's do the questions. How was Jessica Stone impacted by an online game? She could finally understand her children's behavior. That's written because she said she made a breakthrough in talking to her own children. She began to productively communicate with her children. So now between A and B, I have to take a toss-up. It was the children's behavior or it was communication? It was communication, right? All of you must remember that. I'm sure because you just did it. So B part is better than A. She noticed a digression in her professional life, not mentioned, and she grew to love online games herself, nothing to do with the passage. So B is the correct answer. What does the interviewee mean when she says, I am no digital native? Now, native is someone who's born and brought up in that place. So if he's born and brought up with technology around him, then he'll be or she will be a digital native. But she's saying, I am no digital native. That means I'm very unfamiliar with these things. So A can't be an answer. She was averse to all technology. Now, averse is a very strong word. So maybe I'll hold that one off for the time being. She was an amateur in using technology or playing digital games. Now, this is pretty close to I'm not a native, I'm still a newbie, I'm still learning, right? She lacked the technical training required to operate digital technology. Now, we're not talking about technical training. I myself may not be technically trained, but maybe I am not so much of an amateur. I'm a little more tech savvy than she is, but she was a little less than me, so therefore an amateur in using technology or playing games. So C was the correct answer. Which skill does the interviewee display with the usage of the phrase long story short? The actual phrase is to cut a long story short. So if it's a long story and you want to cut it short, clearly you're trying to be succinct or brief. So brevity has to be the correct answer. Now, what was the purpose of writing this passage? Central idea, primary purpose, to highlight the necessity of digital play therapy in terms of its foundational benefits and theoretical advantages. Maybe, but he hasn't spoken about its foundational benefits. So let's compare it to the B part, to showcase the debate regarding the pros and cons. This definitely not. No cons have been spoken, so I'll leave B out. Let's compare it to C, to alert the readers to the inevitability of a shift from conventional therapeutic methods to modern ones. Inevitable shift makes it too extreme, won't accept that. So we're still comparing A with D. To explore the mindset of an expert with regard to the fallibilities of the new digital play therapy. Fallibility means all the flaws. We're not talking about that. So again, A becomes the only answer that's acceptable amongst these four. What is the tone conveyed by the speaker when she states, I kind of had to smack myself upside the head, you know? So sometimes you're trying to do something and you sort of hit yourself hard and saying, what the hell are you doing? And, you know, don't you know how to do this? So reflective, reflect, you're not doing it properly. She's not discouraged, she's not confident, then she doesn't need to smack herself on the head, and hypocritical doesn't fit in here. So A. Now, I hope most of you are feeling joyous that the answers that you marked are coming out to be correct. In the line, you would be almost doing a disservice to your young clients. Now, the word disservice refers to what? So if they're doing a disservice, that means you're not providing them the service that they're looking for. That's why it's a disservice, right? So A and C are out, and that only leaves, actually even stubborn is out. So unfair and unhelpful. You're not trying to be very helpful. If you're giving service to someone, that means you're serving the person. And if you're serving a person, you're helping the person, right? So here B is the correct answer. Which of these options best describes the expression, jump on this bandwagon? Now, we have this expression coming a lot, okay? Everyone jumps on the bandwagon. COVID got over, people started ordering a lot of clothes and stuff online. So everyone jumped on the bandwagon, whether it be Myntra, whether it be Amazon, whether it be Meesho and several other apps, right? Or we all jump on the bandwagon of things that are happening. So we want to follow others. So therefore, the correct answer is the B part. So not jump into action before thinking it through. There you don't have to be on a bandwagon. A bandwagon means necessarily that others are involved, right? So adopt an opinion because it's fashionable, because others are thinking about it. Which of the following is the least likely inference to be drawn from the given passage? Least likely inference. Digital play therapy shares the basic elements with any general type of therapy. Maybe, maybe not, we don't know. Let's leave it. Digital play therapy became a point of interest for Jessica Stone because of her experiences at home. This is true, can't be my answer. It still lacks a proper foundation to make it worthwhile for use. This is opposite of what's given in the passage. If you look at the last para, it says there is a foundation. So therefore, C is definitely least likely to be an inference. Okay. What is the phrase speaking the client's language refer to? And the sentence is, digital play therapy is a modality that is based in speaking the client's language. So client's language is basically client ko ye chahiye ya client ko ye samajh aayega. Isliye I have to speak in a language that the client is able to best express his needs to me, and I am able to best express what I am providing to him in terms of satiating those needs. So highlighting the pros client's language doesn't come there, you would highlight the pros even if you're not speaking the client's language. Providing lucrative offers, that again does not need you to speak client's language. Making the services popular or addressing their needs, because first you need to understand their need and then you're able to speak their language to say each of your needs is getting addressed by what I'm providing. All right. What is Jessica Stone's opinion on digital play therapy as per the text? So her opinion on this therapy as per the text. Now, she clearly liked it and she thought it was something which was very helpful. It has to be accepted as the new form of therapy as the world is growing increasingly digitalized. I'll hold on to this, but she nowhere said that everyone has to accept it. She said each one of us has to find ways to be able to integrate different things. And if you read the last 3 sentences, she makes it pretty clear there. It has replaced prescriptive play therapy because it has more therapeutic powers, not mentioned at all. It's not replaced anything. It has to be regarded as an important part of play therapy because it allows for communication through its mode of co-play. Better answer than A, so I'll drop A and I'll hang on to C because it's talking about co-play. It can be practiced by everyone who wishes to engage in co-play with their children. Then why do we need therapists? So this makes it too easy for anyone to be able to handle it. And this is not what she was saying. She was saying a therapist needs that to better understand the needs of the client. So C is the correct answer. Okay, this one was, some of you may have found it a little tough. So on being a veterinarian series, the next book is called So You Want to Be a Vet, and the third one, I Want to Be a Vet, right? Now, the first one essentially talks about the different medicines that are available for small pets, for small animals. And it's also talking about how emotionally you need to be resilient and stuff. The second one is talking about colleges that you can apply in, what courses are available and things like that, what you need to do, how to fill up those forms, what opportunities you have in the industry. And the last one is talking about children learning to read and books that support that. And towards the end, it's also talking about diversity in characters. So select the option that correctly displays the meaning of succinctly as used in the given line from the text. So you want to be a veterinarian. It succinctly describes colleges of vet medicine. Now, succinct means brief. So brevity was the other word. I had used the word succinct at that time. Politeness does not come. So polite is out, okay? Now, if you look at the B and the D option, discursive. Discursive means rambling, going from one topic to the other, unknowingly, or just sort of rambling from one area to another. So she's definitely not discursive. So option B and D is also out. That just leaves condensed, which means short, compact, which means short, brief, which means short, and to the point, which means exact and succinct. So C was the absolutely correct answer, not one word out of place. Which books of the 3 mentioned in the text are likely to include the following line? So now this is an inference question. It's a hypothesis, right? So if you understood the 3 books carried what, then which of these will have this? How long it takes to become a vet can vary, but if you really love animals and think caringly for them, caring for them is up your alley, then becoming a vet may be the right choice for you. How long it takes for a vet to become a vet can vary. And if you really love animals, then caring for them is something that you may want to do. Now, that means the last one, which was talking about a child learning to read, is definitely out, right? So a child learning to read was, I want to be a veterinarian. So therefore, option C is definitely out. Now, both A and B, or just B and D. So we need to figure out which ones of these. On being a vet and So You Want to Be a Vet. Now, we definitely know that So You Want to Be a Vet will definitely talk about this, which is talking about that becoming, how long it takes to become one, and it can vary from what specialization or other things you're doing. But the one thing that is constant is you have to love them, right? It may be the right choice for you. Now, can it come in the first one also? Now, here the jury is still out. While D seems a better answer, But let's look at the first one. It's talking about the fact that doctors better prepare for the challenges of this career. It puts the reader in the doctor's shoes for a day to illustrate the importance of emotional resilience. It's talking also about each book in the series provides sight on different aspects of small animals and the medicines to help them. So it doesn't seem that it, loving animals, yes, but how long it takes to become a vet can vary. That part doesn't seem to fit in. Therefore, D should be the best one. Which topic would be a part of, so either A or D, but D seems a better option. Which topic would be a part of disciplinary specialities in So You Want to Be a Vet? So if you look at it carefully, internship allowance is not which discipline. Discipline means in a way specialization or what do you want to do further. International Institute, now this is mentioning an institute, it's not a discipline. D, sports medicine and rehab, or remount and vet core, okay? Now, if you look at the D part, sports medicine and rehab, it doesn't tell me it's for vets alone. So therefore the first one. Remount and veterinary core. A core is a body. So remount, how to remount a horse or how to remount anything that you're looking at, that could be something, a definite disciplinary specialty that we're talking about. Okay. By using the phrase gives a glimpse into, the text suggests that on being a vet series imparts extensive knowledge about the personal and professional aspects of a vet's life, gives detailed description about the veterinary profession and its multiple practice types, offers comprehensive health advice to small animal vet doctors, provides salient features of small animals to help prepare future doctors for difficulties in their profession. So on being a vet series was the first one, which was talking about what all you need. You need resilience, you need, and the kind of medicines that were being provided. So the D part is the correct answer. It provides the salient features of small animal vet medicine, given exactly like that, and prepares the doctors for the difficulties. A small animal vet involves dealing with, now we've got to figure out whichever is the smallest. So companion animals are going to be the smallest because farm animals can have cows and definitely not small. Zoo animals by no, and endangered is also out. Which underlying phrase is similar in meaning to increases the odds of success? So the estimate for chances in achieving the goal are maximum when you plan ahead. The increases in bets to gain victory are not just common. So B definitely can't be. When business studies the competition, it improves its chances of surging ahead. A lesser known fact is that focusing on yourself ensures long-term gains. So between A and C, when a business studies the competition, it improves the chances of surging ahead, increases the odd, improves the chances. So C is the best answer in 42. Upon reading the passage, which of the following is likely to be inferred about the main aim of I want to be a vet? So I want to be a vet, I think was the last one. If you guys remember, yeah, I do. It was the last one about reading, learning how to read and stuff like that. So learn about characteristics of vets. No, that was not the one. Learn about inclusion and diversity. Maybe. Learn about various community helpers or learn how to read by oneself. So D is the best one because it's talking about how children learn to read by themselves. Select the option that matches the book to the most likely readerships according to the text. Choose their appropriate options from. I want to be a vet for school students or for I want to be a vet. Children, okay? I want to be a vet should largely be for children, so 2. So you want to be a vet, I think that was the middle one. Let's look at C, on being a veterinary series. So this was the first one, which was dealing with pre-vet and vet students. So I need 2 and 3. So the middle one can be, there's something wrong with the options here. Anyway, so should it be 1 or should it be 4? That's what we have to figure out actually. Now between 1 and 4, school students and graduates or academics and practicing veterinarians. It has to be school students and graduates because it's talking about where you can get admission and how long does it take to become a vet, what to study and stuff. And in any case, we needed A2 and C3. So the correct correct answer is the C option. So just a few more questions left. Or are we done? So I think we're done with most of the questions. Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague who may have something more to do. So we're going to do the GK part after this. So I'm going to stop the share and take my face off from here. So just hang in there. My colleague is just joining and he needs to start his own PPT. So just hang on.
All right. Hi, everyone. Let's begin the session. So, as Shabnam ma'am has already introduced you how the questions level were, I basically will be covering general knowledge and a few legal sections. So, of course, there was a I won't say them purely legal questions, but bits of law. But of course, AILET as an exam has of course changed the pattern significantly, wherein you do not require a prerequisite legal knowledge. So even if you are strong in logic and you can basically comprehend what the words mean, the legal jargons mean, you'll be easily able to come up with the correct answer. So without any further ado, let's quickly look at the questions here. I hope everything is visible on YouTube. All right. So the first question about the National Commission for Backward Classes. So fairly easy question for those of you who have been following the important acts and bills. So this was a bill which was passed back in 2017, the 127th Amendment Bill, and as an act, this is the 102nd Amendment Act which was passed in 2018. So B is the correct choice here. Of course, this commission will come directly under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. So that's how you're going to go about it. So 51B, it's not a difficult question, I would say. Durand line. So of course, again, this is we keep on discussing about the important lines, be it the McMahon line between India China, Radcliffe line between India Pakistan, or the Durand line which separates the India and Afghanistan as countries. So again, this is a fairly easy question. I'm pretty sure most of you would be able to do it. So A here is the correct choice. Next up, AI Readiness Index, published by Oxford Insights. What is India's rank? So this I would say that it's a fairly difficult question. So here the answer, of course, is 51st, but the question is fairly difficult. So I would not be expecting many of you to answer this correctly, and that's how it is. So 53 is C. First artificial intelligence ship to study marine pollution, avoid collisions, and detect marine animals is named as. Again, this is a fairly difficult question. So, in the same category, when it comes to the ranking of AI index, here the answer, of course, is Mayflower 400. But again, this is a fairly difficult question, right? Here the answer is B. Which of the following states the first emergency landing facility on a national highway was inaugurated? Karnataka, Gujarat. There's Rajasthan, of course, and then the fourth option is not visible here. The correct choice, of course, is Rajasthan, where in Badmer district, this landing facility, has been inaugurated. So for those of you who have been fairly, abreast with the current happenings in the news, you would have been able to answer it very easily. So that's where AILET again goes ahead and shows the emphasis which you are supposed to put when it comes to newspaper reading, right? Rajasthan here is the correct choice. Dressed in red and blue, Spidey is a mixture at protests against the military regime. In which country has Spidey become a popular symbol of resistance? Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Chile, Sudan. So Sudan is the correct choice here. Of course, this is not a very difficult question, but I would not say it would, it comes in the easy category as well. I would say it's a moderate question. So Sudan here is the correct choice, but the question is of moderate level. 396 years, Barbados replaced the Queen of England as head of state. Which of the following is true? Barbados became a republic but will remain part of Commonwealth. Barbados became a republic and will no longer be a part of Commonwealth. Barbados became independent in 2021. So here, of course, this is you know Barbados becoming a republic, but simultaneously it also continues to be a part of Commonwealth. So A is the correct choice. This I would not categorize in moderately difficult question, because Barbados, of course, is one of the few countries. It's rarely seen that a country is achieving its republic character. So this is something which everybody expects you to know, and I would not say it. I would not consider it in a moderate level. I would say it. I'll put it between easy and moderate category. So A is the correct choice here. Which of the following is not a member of Quad that met in US just after the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan? Uh, right. So this I think should be Canada, if I'm not wrong. Hmm. Right. Hmm. All right, let's move ahead. What is the name of world's cryptocurrency cruise ship? Makoshi, Satoshi, Bloomer, Rikishi. So yeah, a fair guess here. Satoshi Nakamoto happens to be the that group happens to be the founder of cryptocurrency. Satoshi is what I would guess and is right here as well. So I would not say it a very difficult question, but yeah, I'll put it in a moderate category. Why Canada recently decided to ban Huawei and ZTE from 5G network? So pressure from Five Eyes Network, Government of India, Canadian University Studies, Government of US, Government of India. I don't think I can pressurize Canada to ban a corporate. It is Five Eyes Network, which comprises of the US, UK, the Australia, the Canada, and one more country. So Five Eyes Network is the relevant answer choice here. So again, this is a question which I would not say it's difficult, because this news is there all over how the quad countries, including the AUKUS, is trying to ensure that China is brittled when it comes to showcasing its power. So A is the correct choice here. Supreme Court of India declared the act providing 10.5% internal reservation to one-year community in Tamil Nadu to be unconstitutional. Here again, of course, this is something which was passed by the AIADMK, right? It was upheld by the Madras High Court, but it was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. So those of you who keep a track on news would have been able to answer it. This is D, which is the correct choice here, right? The Supreme Court also said that AIADMK might have passed this laws hastily, and this is against Article 14, 15, and 16, right? So D is the correct choice here. Which country won the Uber Badminton International? So this again is somewhat easy. I need to know about the things which are happening, especially in a prominent sport like badminton, which is gaining traction in, in India. Of course, I need to know that. So this is South Korea. Again, I would say a easy level question. Who was the first Indian to win an Olympic gold in athletics? This is an interesting question. So Abhinav Bindra, of course, was the one who had won Olympics in shooting, but when it comes to track and field event, of course, this is Neeraj Chopra, right? So B is the correct choice here. Which country got its name changed in UN in June 2022? Again, this is something which does not happen very rarely, very occasionally. It happens extremely, once in a blue moon, so to speak. So here again, there's a reasonable expectation from everybody, from you, that you should be knowing this. This is Turkey, and I would categorize this question in easy category. So 64A is the correct choice. According to German Watch Climate Change Performance Index, so this is a very difficult question. Of course, nobody expects you to answer this. The correct answer here is 10th D, right? Desmond Tutu is credited with the establishing and heading the truth and reconciliation processes in South Africa. Which of the following statement about him is not true? His activism was deeply rooted in Christian ethos of forgiveness. Correct. He advocated for victims to forgive the perpetrators of apartheid. He saw religious prayer and social action as being intrinsically linked. He justified discrimination against homosexuals and sought to differentiate them from apartheid. Again, a fact based question, and this is something which is slightly difficult. So, I would not be expecting many of you to answer this. I think the answer here will be D, because he has never, proposed or, sort of accepted or basically talked about discrimination against homosexuals or any hatred towards homosexuals. So D is the correct choice here. May 10th marks the anniversary of 1857 revolt. So this is a history ka question, and if at all you would have read your 10th K social sciences K books properly, you might have been able to answer it correctly. Here it's Chiranjit Lal, which is the correct choice. All the other, be it Maulavi Liaquat Ali, Nana Sahib, or Veer Kunwar Singh, All of them played a major role in 1857 Battle of Revolt. So D is the correct choice. Buddha and his Dhamma. So this, of course, is a manuscript which has been written by B.R. Ambedkar. Again, it's a relatively difficult question, I would say. Nicknamed daughter of Palestine, Shireen Abu Al-Sheikh was among the Arab world's first female field reporters and was allegedly shot dead by Israeli forces while reporting for Al Jazeera from occupied West Bank, which of these countries partly owns Al Jazeera. So just one simple line. Last line is what they are asking you. Which is the country which partly owns Al Jazeera? So that has to be Qatar, right? State of Qatar. So 69D is the correct choice. Hmm. Let's quickly look at these questions. India recently won the Thomas Cup in badminton. Which of the nations have won the Thomas Cup for the maximum number of times? So, of course, since India won the Thomas Cup, of course, the popularity of badminton has risen to another level, and therefore a need to know about the things which the cup is known for. So, of course, this is something which is expected from you to be remembered. Indonesia is the correct choice. Again, this is an easy level question. Timor-Leste recently celebrated 20 years of independence. On May 2002, United Nations formally handed over power to the new Timorese government. Who did they gain independence from? So this is Portuguese colonization. Again, this is slightly difficult. Nobody is expecting you to know this. But okay, 71 is C. Savita Halappanavar was a dentist from Karnataka. In 2012, her death in Ireland resulted in a huge furor. What did Amnesty International term her death to be a consequence of? So again, this is something which is somewhat known by a very few people. So it's again a difficult level question, and this is B, which is the correct choice here. Stringent anti-abortion laws of Ireland is what her death was a consequence of. Okay. Of course, Roe versus Wade is another judgment which has been passed in US talking about the anti-abortion issue, and a lot of protest and a lot of hue and cry is seen across the US. Nilgiri Wildlife Reserve is found to be an intersection of which of the following states? US Union Territories. So here the correct choice will be Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Karnataka. Yeah, D will be the correct choice here. Okay, let's move ahead. 74. Again, this is a fairly difficult question. Nobody is Satyajit Ray's name itself is something which you guys find it difficult to remember. If at all you have known about his contribution to Indian cinema, his prize which was given by the Oscars. Of course, you are not supposed to remember all his movies, but here it is Guru Dutt's Pyasa, which is the correct answer. D is the correct choice. Devi, Charulata, and Music Room, all of them have been basically Satyajit Ray's work, right? In 2018, Shivdikar wrote Paple Oli, which became viral on YouTube. The song is adopted from a Koli folk tune. Who are Koli people? So again, this is somewhat difficult. Originally, these are fishermen, right? Fishing community, and they have settled across India, be it Maharashtra, be it Gujarat, parts of Delhi. This is C, which is the correct choice here. Why did the U.S. Food and Drug Administration restrict Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine? So this was because of rare but serious blood clots, which happened. Again, a difficult level question, not expecting you guys to answer. But yeah, C is the correct choice here. Was the first women judge of Supreme Court of US. Of course, this is something which everybody, I'm pretty sure you must have answered it correctly. Sandra D. Connor is the correct choice. 6 raised dots. So this is Braille, right? So that's how it is basically understood. And the UK Iranian dual citizen Nazanin Ratcliffe, detained and jailed in Iran from 2016 to 2022 on the charges of driving in Western clothing, obscenity in public, inciting Iranian women to violence, espionage. So of course all the three options above are something which is somewhat trivial, right? But D is something which, of course, is unforgivable. Some to a certain extent, C also, but yeah, D is something which can be taken as an informed guess. Factually, also D is the correct choice. So, if I were to talk about overall in 30 questions, what should be an ideal attempt be like? It should be somewhere around 18 to 20. That's what I'm looking at. The questions were of moderate level. I won't say it were, the questions were extremely difficult, but for any informed person who have been reading, general knowledge and things associated with it for a year, 20 correct guesses is something which you could have done here, right? Yes, there were at least 6 7 questions which, regardless of how much GK you would have done, there's no possibility that you could have gotten those answers correct. And I'm assuming 3 4 वो careless mistakes हो ही जाते हैं. So I'm, somewhere around 18 to 20 correct questions is what I'm you know basically going ahead with. So anywhere around 18 to 20 is what my correct my good ideal attempt should be in GK, right? Now, speaking of a few questions which were not purely law, but of course we have to include logic here, and it does not require a prerequisite legal knowledge here, as AILET has categorically mentioned in the form as well, that they would not be asking any legal knowledge questions. All the questions which are related to legal will be principle based, and all of that would not require any prerequisite legal knowledge. So that's how AILET had went ahead and asked the questions. They basically followed whatever they had issued back in their notice, and the questions were relatively easy. And there were a few questions which, well, I won't say difficult, but the options were somewhat confusing. Both of them feel, as in a couple of options were looking like the correct ones. But overall, the questions which had some legal jargons and legal bits, all of these were pretty damn straight, right? So let's look at these questions. The first question is about Criminal Procedure Identification Bill, which seeks to authorize the taking of measurement of convicts and other persons for the purposes of identification and investigation in criminal matters. Bill should not become a law because it allows for collection of measurement without any provision of data protection. So this is what first person is saying. Second is saying, I disagree. Data protection measures can be developed, but the bill will help law enforcement agencies to utilize the latest technology to identify the criminals. Which of the following is correct? 1 and 2 agree that bill should not become a law. 1 and 2 agree that data is a valid concern with respect to the bill. Concerns about data are sufficient to reject the bill. Right. So I think it should be C here. Sufficient to reject the bill is what I have to choose. So again, a pretty straightforward question here. And data protection, of course, would preponder over the other aspects here. So C is the correct choice here. Let's move ahead. Dispute between X and Y. Y can sue X in the city of Y's residence, or in the city of X's residence, or in the city where the dispute arose. All right. So here we are talking about Y suing X, right? All right. Y lives in Calcutta and is the owner of some restaurant located in Calcutta. X lives in Delhi and starts a restaurant named some restaurant in Delhi. Okay, similar names. Huh? Y wants to sue X for infringement of the name of the restaurant, right? Y can sue X in Delhi only, okay, in Calcutta, but only if the dispute arose in Calcutta, okay. In either one of the Delhi and Calcutta, regardless of whether dispute arose, none of the above. All right. So here it is saying they can sue in the cities of Y's residents or in the cities of X's residents. Right. So this is a purely logical question. If I look at the options here, in Delhi only can't be, only यहाँ पे है ही नहीं ऐसा. In Calcutta, but only if the dispute arose in Calcutta, can be, but uh, right, in the city of Y's residents, in the city of X's residents, in the city of where the dispute arose, right? So here it is again something which is we cannot be sure of, right? And C is somewhat correct. Why? Because it's saying either, which supports or here, but then it has put an and, which is not logically correct. So I'll go ahead with D. C could also be the answer, but it's slightly tilted towards none of the above. This is what I'm going to choose. So 86 is D. Okay, all contracts are agreement. Sorry for the the wave with the questions. Let's look at the questions. Let's look at the content here. All contracts are agreements. So only agreements enforceable by law are contracts. So this is a clear section 2 question. Why is government official tasked with issuing driving license to applicant who meet the criteria? X is applied for a driving license but does not meet the criteria. X and Y enter into an oral agreement that X will pay 5,000 to issue driving license. With reference to the facts given above, X says I have entered into a contract with Y. X is wrong because the agreement was not in writing. X is wrong because an agreement not enforceable by law is not a contract. X is right. There is insufficient information to reach the conclusions in option A, B, and C. Yeah. What do you think should be the answer, guys? Let's see some chat. Anyone who can take a informed answer guess here? Still waiting. Yes, Ishan, yeah, I think you recognized me. Thank you. So here the question is pretty clear. It's ये तो हमें we can completely segregate it with what we have read. So all contracts are agreement, but only those agreements which are enforceable by law will be contracts, right? The factual situation is such that the government official is basically tasked to issue some driving license, right, to the applicants who meet the criteria. Now, X has applied for a driving license but does not meet the criteria, right? X and Y enter into an oral agreement that X will pay Y rupees 5,000 to issue a driving license. So here, all the contracts are agreements, only agreements which are enforceable by law or contract. So here, can it be enforced regardless of how much money, it is giving? We have already, so this is somewhat some law ka prerequisite knowledge could help here, right? What should be the answer here, guys? Right? So has to be an agreement not enforceable by law is not a contract. So B will be the correct choice here. So here some prerequisite knowledge of law might have helped you to basically segregate what exactly is an agreement, what exactly is a contract. Right? So B is the correct choice here. All right, only registered trademarks can be infringed. Copying a registered trademark is sufficient to constitute infringement. X owns the trademark Yummylicious restaurant. Y copies this trademark. X sues Y for an infringement. Similar, not similar question, but yeah, somewhat pertaining to the previous XY Yummylicious, reference. So yeah, registered trademarks can be infringed, and copying a registered trademark is sufficient to constitute infringement. So here, of course, if X trademark was registered here, if he has copied, of course, there's an infringement. So A is the correct choice here, right? No qualms about it. Fairly easy question. Right, let's move ahead. All right, this seems to be a long question. Let's see. Bar Council of India framed a rule stipulating that an advocate is prohibited from advertising or soliciting his work either directly or indirectly through circulars, advertisements, interviews, touts, and personal communication. All right, so he is not allowed to advertise or solicit his work, right, through these circulars, advertisement, interviews, etc. The idea of the prohibition of advertising practices in the legal profession has been taken from the law in the UK, where the legal profession is considered noble, and it is believed that its commercialization will cause dishonor to the profession and lead to unfair practice. Fair enough. Based on the information above, which conclusion necessarily follows? The Bar Council of India has copied the law in the UK without applying its own mind as to whether such a restriction on advertising would be conducive in the Indian context. Not really. Lawyers in India are not allowed to commend themselves to person looking for legal assistance. Okay, so here, of course, basically commending is praising, right? So they are not allowed to commend themselves to person looking for legal assistance. So this is something which I'll go ahead with. So only two is what I'll choose. So B will be the correct choice, right? Okay, again, fairly easy question, provided you have understood the context here. Again, so these again are lengthy questions, but these are fairly easy questions. So you could have done it, provided you are good with, comprehending facts. X and Y entered into a contract for supply of goods by X to Y in exchange for payment from Y to X. Okay, fairly simple contract. Neither party shall be held liable for failure to comply with its obligation under this contract if such a failure is due to any kind of natural disaster or human event beyond its control. Successful invocation of this clause by either party shall protect the party from liability for non-fulfillment of its obligation under the contract only until the natural disaster or human event is subclause 1 continues to affect that party. Contract requires X to deliver goods from his house to Y's house latest by 30th May. Both X and Y live in the same city on the morning of 30th May. There's a big earthquake near X's house which causes all roads in the area to be blocked. The blockage remains present until 31st May. Can I claim that this situation falls under subclause 1? What is subclause 1? Neither party shall be held liable for failure to comply with its obligation under this contract if such a failure is due to any kind of natural disaster or human event beyond its control. Okay. Yes, because so what is the reason behind it being under subclause 1? Earthquake is a natural disaster beyond excess control. X's failure to deliver the goods was due to earthquake because X could have delivered the goods to Y before 30th May, and his failure to deliver the goods to Y is due to his laziness. Again, this is something which is not relevant here. So A and B is the correct choice. D is the correct choice, guys. So again, it's a fairly simple question, fairly simple logic question. You don't even need law for it. Okay, so D is the correct choice here. Let's move ahead. Advocate is bound to accept any brief in courts and tribunals. Okay, which he proposes to practice a free consent with standing at the bar and nature of the case. Okay, fairly simple principle. You are an advocate practicing in the Supreme Court of India, specializing in criminal law. You are opposed by Pakistani national who has been convicted of serious terrorism and murder charges by Delhi High Court. He wants you to represent him before the Supreme Court. He's willing to pay any fee you may quote. However, you have a serious moral obligation to taking up this case since it concerns the security of the country. Nowhere in the principle is talking about morality as a option to bridle yourself from representing anybody. So keep that in mind. You can refuse to represent the terrorist on account of your strong moral objection. It is unfair to force a lawyer to argue a case. Again, I told you the reason why it shouldn't be A. It can't be because of morality. You can refuse to represent the terrorist on account of your strong moral objection. It would be unfair. Blah blah blah. You are under no obligation to accept the case because the principle makes no exception for advocates having moral objection. I'll go with none of the above. All the other options, red, red. Not really. I can go ahead with C as well. You are under an obligation to accept the case because the principle makes no exception for advocates having moral objection. What do you think, guys? What could be the answer? Yeah, I think it could be C. C looks slightly better in terms of choice. Right. Huh. So again, it strictly is talking about how I can accept it, even if So it does not talk about people who have moral objections. So that's where I would rather go ahead with C. Right. Okay. Next up, it's about Michael. So this is about person accused of an offense involving commercial quantity of narcotic drugs shall be released on bail or on his own bond unless the court is satisfied that there is reasonable grounds for believing that he is not guilty of such offense, that he is not likely to commit any offense while on bail. Slightly difficult principle. Let's read it again. No person accused of an offense involving commercial quantity of narcotic drugs, okay, shall be released on bail or on his own bond unless the court is satisfied that there are reasonable grounds for believing that he is not guilty of such offense and that he is not likely to commit any offense while on bail. ठीक है, समझ में तो आ गया. Let's look at the facts. Michael is accused of possessing commercial quantities of cocaine, which is an offense. Okay, however, he has not yet been arrested by police. He moves to the relevant court for anticipatory bail, praying that he should not be arrested for the alleged offense. Court finds a good case for grant of anticipatory bail. However, the court is not ready to state that there are reasonable grounds for believing that he is not guilty of such offense. Okay. Court is not bound by the given principle because the principle speaks of the release of a person on bail, thus implying that it does not apply to cases of anticipatory bail. The court is still bound by the given principle because it would be absurd to suggest that person in custody does not and those not yet arrested are governed by different rules. Court is not bound by given principle because its language is only in the form of a recommendation. Court is free to grant bail based on its own sense of fairness and justice. So again, this is something which does not follow all the three choices here. I will rather go with none of the above because all the three options here are not following from what I have read from the principle, applying it to the facts. Okay, so D is the correct choice here. Again, a fairly simple question, no qualms about it. Uh, let's look at this. Appeal by a candidate or his agent or by any other person with consent of the candidate or his election agent to vote or refrain from voting or any person on the ground of his religion shall be corrupt practice. All right. So, if at all there is an appeal for voting, right, or refrain from voting by any person on the ground of his religion, all right. So, his religion, race, caste, community, or language, okay, shall be corrupt. Mrs. Misty, a candidate from some party, says to her voters, vote for me because you are all Christians and your interests will be protected by me. So look how carefully they have framed the entire sentence. Huh? Vote for me because you are all Christians and your interests. So it is talking about if at all the uh, they can basically corrupt practice will include only asking the people from your religion to basically vote or refrain from voting. So here it's not talking about Miss Tikku's religion, right? So we वहीं पे मेरे को आधा समझ में आ गया. Miss Tikku is guilty of corrupt practice because she has appealed to religion. Miss Tikku is not guilty of corrupt practice because she has appealed neither to her own religion nor to another candidate's. Is not guilty of corrupt practice because the principle only applies to male candidates. None of the above. What do you think should be the answer between B and D? What would you choose? Her own religion, not to another candidate's. So B is the correct choice. ठीक है, again fairly simple, just the phrase has to be read carefully, that's all. All right, freedom of speech is not absolute. Some speech such as hate speech, sedition, defamation are not protected. With conclusion necessarily follows obscene speech is protected by the constitution, defamation is a criminal offense. One follows, two follows, vote one and two, neither follows. So again, here it's not talking about obscenity anywhere. So second, first is gone. Defamation में क्या बोल रहा है? Certain categories of speech such as speech, sedition, defamation are not protected by the constitution. Defamation nowhere is a criminal offense. It does not say that. It just does is not basically protected by the constitution. So both one and two does not follow, and that's the clear choice here. This will be the last question. A suit for recovery of money can be only filed within 3 years from the date of money becomes due to be recovered. Okay, suits filed after this period are not maintainable. 3 saal, basically the limitation period which is there. Suits filed within this period are necessarily maintainable. Money became due from Y to X. So this is the fact on March 17, 2017. Okay, so due from Y to X. Okay, March 17, 2017. ठीक है, X filed a suit for recovery of money. So of course Y owes him money since 2017, right? And if at all I apply limitation, this has to be 2020. ठीक है, he's filing a suit in 2022. Of course this is not maintainable. So very simple question, right? You don't need law for it. So of course if I talk about the so to speak legal questions, legal slash logical questions, again they were fairly simple. Prerequisite law ka knowledge would have definitely helped, but you do not require it. Even if you do not have any prior knowledge of law, you could have easily fared in all the questions. So here, out of the 10 questions, I think a decent attempt could be somewhere around 7 to 8 is all I can say. So all the best, guys. Next up, I think Alpesh sir will be taking over. Alpesh sir, are you here?
Hi, everyone. So let us look at the logical reasoning section. This section only had 4 questions, and most of the questions were from groupings and conditionalities itself. So let us look at the first question of this section. Okay, so if I look at this question, it says that if X gets an ice cream bar, the other 2 ice cream bars can go to. So I know Geeta has 5 friends, V, W, X, Y, and Z. If X gets an ice cream bar, now if I look at condition number 2, it says that if Z gets an ice cream bar, X cannot get an ice cream bar, but X has already got an ice cream bar. So can I definitely rule out Z? Okay, now I know that, let's assume V gets C ice cream bar. Now, as per condition 1, if V gets an ice cream bar, W and Y must also get an ice cream bar. So if you check, there are 4 people getting an ice cream bar. However, we only have 3 people getting an ice cream bar. Hence, I can definitely say that we will not get an ice cream bar. Now, Geeta wants to give 3 people the ice cream bar. Hence, W and Y will definitely get an ice cream bar. So along with X, the 2 people getting an ice cream bar are W and Y. So the answer option has to be B. Let us now look at the second question here. So if English is the second subject scheduled on a given day, which of this is a possible order of subjects for that day? Now, the first condition given here says that all subjects except music must be scheduled at least once a day. That means music may be scheduled, but remaining subjects has to be scheduled. So now, using this condition, I can easily eliminate option B and C. Or sorry, I can easily eliminate option A and B, because in A, there is no science at all. And in B, there is no English at all. Okay, so using that first condition, 2 option gets eliminated. Now, if I look at the second condition, which says that science must be scheduled immediately after maths on any given day. If you look at the fourth option, maths is the first subject, science is the third subject. So that condition is not getting satisfied. Hence, option D also gets eliminated. And I'm just left with option C. It satisfies all the conditions. So you can see these are questions wherein you can easily work with your options. No need to form a diagram or anything of that sort. Just make use of the options and start solving them. Let's look at the third question of logical reasoning. Now, if badminton is played on Monday and basketball is played on Saturday, which of the following is the possible order of sports for the week? Now, look at the first condition. What does it say? Badminton cannot be played on a day immediately before or immediately after the day on which tennis is played. If you look at this condition, option A gets eliminated, because you look at Monday, I'm playing badminton, and Tuesday, I'm playing tennis, which is not possible as per the condition. So one option gets eliminated. Let's look at the other condition. No sport can be played on 2 consecutive days. So if you look at this question, can I eliminate option B? Because I'm playing 2 sports on a particular day, which is basketball. I'm playing basketball on Saturday as well as Sunday, because of which the second option gets eliminated. Now, if you look at the third option and the remaining conditions, all the other conditions are getting satisfied. So I will mark C as the answer in this case. Finally, let's look at the fourth question in the set. There are 7 locations. Which of the following is a possible arrangement of the 7 locations going from floor 1 to floor 7? Once again, as I said, this is another typical example wherein, working with options is simply helping me, or working with elimination of options. So if I look at the first condition, the meeting room is exactly 1 floor lower than the hostel. So if you check here, the meeting room is on floor number 2. The hostel is on floor number 5. Is it 1 step lower? No. Hence, option C gets eliminated. Let's look at the next condition, which says the library is either on floor 1 or on floor 7. So now, if you look at option number 1 or A, the library is neither on 1 or 7, because of which it gets eliminated. Let's look at the next condition. It says the common room should be on floor number 4. If you look at the option D, the common room is on floor number 3, because of which even that gets eliminated. So I'm just left with one option and I'll mark that as the answer. So with this were the only 4 questions of LR which were present in the AILET test. So now let us get into the critical reasoning section.
Hi everyone, good evening. Am I audible? Is my voice clear to all of you? All right, so let's start the session. So the critical reasoning part, the logical reasoning part in this paper was fairly okay. I will not say that it was very difficult. It was pretty doable, although some of the questions were pretty time consuming, and therefore logic dictates that all such questions should have been left in the first place. And even if someone did not attempt these questions, it would not have made much of a difference. Just give me a moment. I can hear the echo of my own voice. All right, so extremely sorry for the interruption. Apparently, there was some technical issue from my end. Okay, so the first question that we have is, it is basically, an assumption question. So of course, I'll not be reading the entire paragraph to you, but of course, it simply states that South Korea and Japan, they do not auction their spectrum. In fact, they do it on the basis of discretion, right? So a lot of facts are given in this question, and ultimately in this argument, and ultimately the question states that which of the following assumptions is made in the above passage? Now, option A states that geese are not consumed as food in Japanese and South Korean cultures. Now we have to understand one thing, that geese that lay golden eggs, this is an option that has been used metaphorically over here. It does not mean that the Japanese or the Korean people necessarily consume the geese, although it can be possible. But of course, in the context of this passage, the expression has been used quite metaphorically, not literally. Therefore, option A can be completely and very comfortably eliminated. Option B, auctioning telecom spectrum would generate a great deal of revenue for the Japanese and the South Korean governments. Yes, this is definitely true, because it is given over here. Just let me show you. It's given over here that the focus being on ensuring the availability and the revenue the super enabled industry would generate, rather than on generating revenue from spectrum auctions. So that means that spectrum auctions are, a source of a good revenue stream for these countries. Therefore, B has to be true, right? Governments that wish to provide good telecom service should not auction telecom spectrum. Now, this is something that is not again necessarily true. Same with option D also. Governments that wish to provide good telecom service should auction telecom spectrum. Again, this is something that is not necessarily true. So an assumption, of course, as most of you know, that an assumption is something that has to be true in order for the argument to be true, right? So only option B is something that is, forming the basis of this argument, and therefore option B is the correct answer, right? Let's move on to the next question. It was again, a fairly simple question, not because the options were pretty simple to eliminate. So it simply states that, the impact of coronavirus on people's sleeping habits, and, insomnia happening, it has become a regular phenomenon. Now, the question is again an assumption question, correct? So increasing levels of obesity in the world population have exacerbated chronic insomnia. Again, obesity is something that is not even mentioned anywhere in the argument. Therefore, option A can be comfortably eliminated. Option B, there has been an uptick in the natural disasters and terror attacks in recent times. Now, this is something that the paragraph, that the argument does not state. The argument simply states that there are natural disasters, there are terrorist attacks that are causing short-term sleeplessness. But of course, on the basis of that, it will be wrong to assume that disasters or terrorist attacks, they have increased in recent times. Therefore, option B also goes up. It was a very simple option to eliminate. Heightened levels of stress contribute to short-term as well as long-term sleeplessness. Yes, this is in fact what the argument has been talking about in the entire paragraph. So option C looks like a good option. Option D, the treatment of chronic insomnia is costly for public health systems across the world. Again, nothing has been mentioned about the cost that is being incurred by the public health systems so far as the treatment of insomnia is concerned. and therefore option D can also go out. Therefore, the correct answer will be option C. Right? Next question. Now, again, this was slightly mathematical question. I mean, very, very, very less mathematics. So, of course, scientists have been able to complete the first full and seamless catalog of genetic instructions. Until now, 8% was missing. Now, they have found out, ways they have deciphered, they have decoded the DNA sequence, and it will help to create every human cell, how to treat, prevent, and cure diseases. Now, just 10 million bases or letters of human DNA out of roughly 3 billion are unknown. So again, it's an assumption question. Again, the options were not very difficult to eliminate. Until the discovery, it had been impossible to explain any human cell in the body created. Now, of course, this is a very, very extreme option. And this is something that the argument does not even mention, right? The author simply mentioned that the DNA sequence has taken decades, and this will explain how to create every human cell in the body. Now, of course, based on the basis of this information, we cannot say that until its discovery, it had been impossible to explain how any human cell. Now, this option has got multiple red flags, right? Multiple extreme options that are sort of telling you that this is not the correct answer. So, of course, option A goes out. Option B, it has been possible to complete the full seamless catalog of human genetic instructions using 2.99 billion letters of human DNA. That is absolutely true, because only 10 million are remaining. So, of course, 2.99 billion letters of human DNA that were available. Based on that, the scientists have managed or have been successful in creating the seamless catalog of human genetic instructions. So this is definitely true. Option C, scientists will be able to explain how to treat and prevent cellular disease only once the remaining. The answer is no, because it is directly contradicting. The scientists already know how this discovery can shed light on how to treat, prevent, and cure diseases. So, of course, it is not true that they will be able to explain how to treat and prevent diseases only once the remaining 10 million letters are known. So, this is not true. The 8% of missing human genome code has taken the longest time to be deciphered. Definitely, it has taken a long time. It has taken decades, but longest time, I need to have a basis for that. It has taken, definitely, it might have taken 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, but is it the longest time? This is something that I cannot reasonably say on the basis of the information that I have been given. And therefore, option D also goes out. So the correct answer will be option B. All right. Next question. 84th. See, again, it was a very straightforward question, and definitely one of those questions which definitely should have been attempted by you. So the statement reads that India should generate solar energy to meet its unmet energy requirements. The assumptions are solar energy is cheaper than other forms of energy. Now, this is something that we cannot say for certain, can we? The statement simply says that you should do this to meet your unmet energy requirement, but that does not mean that what you are doing is cheaper than other forms of energy. In fact, the cost that is being incurred is not mentioned anywhere in the statement, right? So one is not the correct answer. India is capable of generating solar energy. Yes, that is why the statement says that India should generate solar energy. So there has to be a capability. That is why the statement is being made. So definitely two can be a good assumption. Third, India is unable to meet its energy requirements using non-solar energy. Definitely, that is why, because there is some gap. There is some gap in energy requirements, that the energy that is being created because of, because of conventional or non-solar energy methods, that energy is not sufficient. That is why the author is making the statement. So, of course, option 3, statement 3 has to be true. Assumption 3 has to be true. So 2 and 3 both are true. Therefore, option D is the correct answer. Option D, both 2 and 3 is the correct answer. Once again, let me ask one question. Am I audible to everyone? Is everyone able to hear me out? Loud and clear? Cool. Wonderful. Next. Now this is this is a very funny question because some people might have fell the trap in this question, and the question was also based on a trap. To catch the rats running around in the house, you should use a trap. All right. Assumptions are rats are likely to step into rat traps. Now this is again has to be true because if you know that rats will definitely enter the rat trap, or it is possible that rats will enter the rat trap, only then will you put rat traps inside the house. If you know that rats never enter rat traps, so will you be putting any sort of rat trap inside your home? The answer is no. So of course assumption number one is a very reasonable, very logical assumption. Then I look at assumption number two. Food will be kept inside the rat trap. Now the point is that we are given that if you want to catch the rats, you should be using rat traps. Fine, but what is the way? What are the method of trapping the rats, catching the rats? That is not given. It is very much possible that you are putting some poison, or you have used some sort of a intricate contraption, right? Very much possible. So it is not necessary that you will be trapping the rats using the food, right? It is not. It is possible, but it is not certain. So it cannot be the assumption, right? Option three, rat traps are small in size. Again, we cannot say that rat traps are small or big in size, because if you want to catch big size rats, you cannot, use traps that are small in size. And therefore, statement or assumption number three is also, not a very reasonable or logical assumption. Therefore, that also goes out. And therefore, in this case, the answer will be only one is implicit. That is option C, right? Moving on to the next one. So this study, statistically proves that people who play sports suffer from less stress than those who do not play sports, right? In fact, regularly playing sports is associated with an overall higher level of mental health. So the author is simply telling me the benefits of playing sports, that people who do play sports, they are less likely to suffer, or they suffer from less stress than those who play sports, right? So the question is, which of the conclusion necessarily follows? Now, necessarily follows mean this is something we have to choose a conclusion that will be 100% true, that we can say with 100% certainty. Option one, or conclusion one. Statements are essential to maintaining good mental health. Yes, we can say that because it is statistically proven, right? Because people who are playing sports, they suffer less stress than those who do not play sports, right? And the overall mental health also increases. So yes, sports are essential to maintaining good mental health. People who regularly play sports never face mental health issues. Again, the word never should be a red flag for me, because this option eventually states that if you are playing sports, you can be, rest assured, you will never be having any sort of mental issues. Now, this is not necessarily true, correct? Because, if definitely, I can be a sports person, I can be a Hardik Pandya, I may have recently won an IPL, but if my personal life is pretty messed up, then of course it is very much possible that I may be having some sort of mental issues. And therefore option two also is not something that is necessarily true. And therefore option two goes out. So therefore the correct answer is option A, only one follows, right? Next one, a very interesting question. So, all of us have been scolded for playing too many video games. Some of you might still be. I was scolded a lot in my childhood. Anyway, so this question eventually states that, a lot of people have been criticizing video games, and they have been associating video games with violent behavior, violent content, blah, blah, blah. But numerous studies have been conducted, and none of them, not even a single one of them, was able to find any connection between video games and violent behavior. So now can I say that video games have no relationship with violence? Possibly, yes. Definitely means, because if numerous studies, the author uses the word numerous, multiple studies have been conducted and they did not find any connection between video games and violent behavior. So of course, it will be very reasonable to conclude that video games have no relationship with violence, right? Option two, better studies need to be conducted to find a link between video game and violence. Now, the argument or the or the paragraph does not tell me about the quality of these studies. It simply states that multiple studies were conducted. It does not state that, the nature of the studies was dubious, or they were conducted by bogus organizations. It does not state that. It is very much possible that the studies were conducted by very credible, very reputed institutions or agencies, and they failed to establish any direct link between video games and violent behavior, right? So in that case, of course, we do not need to conduct better studies to find a link between video games and violence. So option 2 is something that does not follow from the information that we have been given. And therefore, option 1 is the only possible answer, that video games have no relationship with violence. Right? This is something that's a legal reasoning question. I guess it must have been covered. This is also a legal reasoning question. 90th, again a legal reasoning. 91 is also legal reasoning. 92. Yes, so it's a critical reasoning question. Is LeBron James the best professional basketball player of all time? Yes, LeBron James has had the largest fan base among all professional basketball players in the history of the sport. So if someone has got a very huge, in fact, the largest fan base among all professional basketball players, it is very reasonable to assume that the person is, a very great, a very good, probably the greatest player of all time, right? Then argument 2 states, no, LeBron James has changed his team too many times. So just because someone is changing his team so many times, it does not make him, a bad basketball player, or, that does not make him someone who is less than the best, right? So for example, I may be very competent, I may be very talented, and if due to some reason I have to switch organizations, that does not mean that I'm any less talented or any less competent. It can be because of, of an array of reasons, right? So just because someone is switching teams, it does not mean that the person is bad or the person is not great, right? Argument 3. No other player has scored more points in their professional career than LeBron James has. Yes. So if someone is having the highest tally of points, right, then any other professional basketball player, that indeed makes him the best professional basketball player of all time. So argument 1 and argument 3 are strong. Argument 2 is very, very weak, and therefore the correct answer is option D. Both argument 1 and 3 are strong, right? I'm also constantly reading your chats if there are any. Cool. Next one. Children should not read novels that contain instances of racism. Person 1 says. Person 2, in response to person 1 says, parents and teachers of children can use such novels to educate children against racism. All right. So person 1 is saying that children should not read novels that contain instances of racism. So ultimately, person 1 believes that there are indeed certain novels that contain instances of racism, right? And person 2 says that parents and teachers can use such novels to educate children against racism. So person 2 also believes that there are certain novels that have, instances of racism, and of course that can be used to teach children or to educate children against racism, right? So effectively, person 1 and person 2, both of them believe that there are some novels, certain novels, which have got instances of racism. That is what essentially option A is saying, right? So option A definitely is true. Person 2 supports racism, definitely not, because he's saying that we should use such novels to educate children against racism, right? So option 2 is not true. Both A and B, of course, cannot be the answer. Neither A and B cannot be the answer. So the correct answer will be option A. Both person 1 and person 2 agree that some novel contain instances of race, right? Again, a very simple question, not a very difficult one. All right, 94. Next question. So it says that cocoa is rich in plant chemicals called flavonols that may help to protect the heart. Dark chocolate contains up to 2 to 3 times more flavanol-rich cocoa than milk chocolate. Flavonols have been shown to support the production of nitric oxide and indolithium. That helps to relax the blood vessels and improve blood flow, thereby lowering blood pressure. All right. Flavanols in chocolate can increase insulin sensitivity in short-term studies. In the long term, this could reduce the risk of diabetes. Now the question is, it's a strengthening question, right? It's a strengthening question. So ultimately, the author says that, dark chocolate or cocoa or flavanols, all these substances, they help to, they sort of, provide strength to our heart, and they can protect from probably any cardiac arrest, right? And of course, they can also reduce the risk of diabetes. So we have to choose an option that goes or that supports this line of reasoning or this argument or this thought, correct? Um, so A, communities with high levels of dietary intake of chocolate exhibit low rates of death from hypertension, that is high blood pressure. So now I have been given, sort of a statistic that there are communities that intake a lot of dark chocolate with, and they die, they, the rate of death from hypertension is lower, right? So definitely option A is trying to establish a link between the higher intake of dark chocolate and of course the reduced number of instances of deaths because of hypertension. So of course option A is definitely supporting the argument, and therefore option A can be a potentially good answer. Individuals with low levels of nitric oxide in the endothelium exhibited relaxed blood vessels and robust blood flow. This sort of weakens the argument because flavanols have been shown to support the production of nitric oxide that helps to relax the blood vessels, right? Now this means, now ultimately option B states that even people who had low levels of nitric oxide, they also exhibited relaxed blood vessels and robust blood flow. And this is something that goes against what the author is saying. So instead of strengthening the argument, this option is probably weakening it. So option B cannot be the answer. Option C, there is no peer-reviewed studies which proves the link between flavanols and reduction in risk of diabetes. This again sort of, it is giving me a counter argument. It is giving me a counter reason to not believe what the author is saying, what the argument eventually states. So if anything, this argument, option C, is something that can potentially weaken the argument instead of strengthening it, right? So therefore, we have only one option, that is strengthening the argument, what the author is saying, and that is option A. Next question. AI often elicits a sense of amazement or wonder, possibility for the future, but just AI offers advancement. There is also the potential for a bleak future. All right, machines are prone to bias and racism. These machines learn by running training data through algorithms, each crafted by human handlers. And therefore, if the data inputted into the system is biased, the result will be biased too, of course. This is dangerous and the threat needs to be addressed before biased AI systems become ubiquitous. That means something that is present everywhere. Ultimately, A1 or AI systems have the potential to deepen existing systemic inequalities, particularly in the industries like healthcare, employment, all right, and justice. So the question is, what is the assumption over here? What is the assumption over here? All right. So the author says that AI, the machines that are using AI, right, they are prone to biases and they are prone to racism. And of course, if you input the incorrect data in these machines, the outputs also will be biased. The outputs also will not be the desired outputs, right? And the author calls this a dangerous, a dangerous thing to happen, or a threat that needs to be addressed. All right, so let us look at the options. Option A states, existing data sets can incorporate the biases of human handlers, which reflects AI output. Yes, this is definitely true. This is definitely true that existing data sets, can incorporate the biases of human handlers. Means, the author is saying that if you input biases of the human handlers, that will be reflected in the machines too, right? So that means the existing data sets, the data sets on which, which is probably being fed into the machines right now, right? They can incorporate biases of human handlers. And therefore, this makes option A a great option. It can be, a potentially correct option. Option B, large-scale deployment of AI systems has been hindered by the likelihood of biased results. Now, the point is that large-scale deployment is a very, very problematic option here, because the author is talking about the assumption, and an assumption is something that has to be true in order for the argument to be true. The argument does not anywhere mention large-scale deployment, right? So therefore, large-scale deployment of AI system has been hindered by the likelihood of biased results. This is true. This is not true, and therefore option B also goes out. Human handlers have tried to manipulate AI systems through the use of biased data. Now, this can be possible, but not certain, because the author says if the data inputted into the system is biased, if the author states a condition, it is not a certainty that it is going to happen, right? Whereas option C states that it has already happened, which is not true. So option C also goes out. Industries like healthcare, employment, and criminal justice are in urgent need of AI systems. Have the potential? No, in fact, the author just says the opposite. AI systems have the potential to deepen inequalities. So, of course, if they have the potential to deepen inequality, especially in healthcare, employment, criminal justice, then of course they are not in urgent need of AI systems. AI systems can wait until you develop a system which is free of biases, which is fair, right? Which is fair, which is just, and therefore option D also goes out. So the correct answer will be option A. Option A, right? This is essentially, a syllogism question. So of course, I can simply tell you the answer. 96 will be option B. Only 5 follows. Now, of course, because it's a syllogs question, therefore I will not be drawing the Venn diagrams. I will simply share the answers with you. So all of you, who have learned the basics of syllogs must have answered this question easily. 97th answer will be option B. Only 2, 4, and 6 follow. All right, you can just verify your answers from the answers that are being given over here. 98 will be option A. Only 1 follows. All right. 99. We'll come back to this question later. All right. Next is capitalism is a philosophy. All ideas are fictional objects. Only fictional objects are philosophy. So ultimately, this is also a syllogs question, right? And therefore, the correct answer will be option C. Only 2 follows, right? Some apples are fruits. All fruits are ducks. Some ducks are books. Now, again, this is a syllogs question. So please understand one thing, that syllogs question, they can be solved by drawing the Venn diagrams, and therefore, I'm not doing them. So I'm just, sharing the answers with you so that you can verify whether the answers that you have marked are correct or not. The answer to this question, by the way, will be option B. At least some books are ducks, right? At least some books are ducks. This is not 102, not an LR question. We can leave. Yeah, 109. So 109, there must be mandatory vaccination against communicable diseases, right? So argument 1 states that yes, the collective well-being of the population must override individual choice. This is, a very good argument. Because if the disease is communicable, right? And if you are saying that there must be mandatory vaccination, so of course, if someone is saying something in support of that, and something that is so reasonable, that the collective well-being of the population must override individual choice, definitely. So for example, if I am someone who chooses not to get vaccinated, now if I come in contact with 100 or thousands of people, probably I am a potential carrier and have the potential to transmit the disease to those 100 or 1,000 people whom I have come in contact with. And therefore, because I'm a potential spreader, I can turn later into a super spreader, who knows, right? So the collective well-being of the population definitely must ride over individual choice. So something that we have seen in the case of COVID-19 also. And therefore, argument 1 is a pretty good, pretty solid argument. Argument 2, this is also strong. No individuals must have agency, must have freedom, must have liberty over what they want to inject into their bodies. Definitely, this is also, because ultimately it is all about, your own individuality, your own freedom, that I do not want to get vaccinated, right? In fact, there are certain people who have got inhibitions because they do not trust the vaccines, and therefore, they have got complete liberty about whether they want to get vaccinated or not, right? So the argument that is given to us, in contradiction to the main statement is also good enough. So argument 1 and 2 both are strong. Argument 3, no, this would lead to profiteering by vaccine manufacturers. Now, if something is leading to profiteering by vaccine manufacturers, that does not mean that it is not curing the disease, because right now the ultimate aim, because if it's a communicable disease, the ultimate intent, the ultimate objective should be to find out the cure, should be to stop the spread of the disease, right? And of course, if it is leading to profiteering, so what is wrong in profiteering, right? There is nothing wrong if it is providing the cure. Right now, so many organizations such as the ones that have created COVID Shield or Covax or Sputnik or whatever, all of them have become, they have grown by leaps and bounds, and there is no harm in that, right? So even if it leads to profiteering, if it is spreading, if it is curbing the control, the spread of the disease, there is nothing wrong about that. And therefore argument 3 is not a very strong argument that just because you want to stop vaccine manufacturers from making profit, therefore people should not get vaccinated. This is a very ridiculous argument, right? And therefore option 3, argument 3 is a very, very weak argument, and therefore the correct answer will be option A. Only argument 1 and 2 are strong. Next, should there be a limit on the number of times an individual may be elected as a head of state? Now, of course, the answer, all of you, argument 1, yes, it prevents concentration of power in a single individual for a prolonged time and reduces the possibility of misuse of power. That's a very, very good argument, because if a person is in the power or has been in the power for a long time, that increases the likelihood of misuse of the power, because that person knows that the next term also I will win, next term also, next to next term also I will win, so of course I can do whatever I want to. So if you really want to, that is essentially what happens in dictatorships, right? And that is why any government that is based on dictatorship usually falls, right? So therefore argument 1 is a pretty good argument. No, an incumbent individual will know how to best run the country given their experience. Now argument 2 is also strong, because it is possible that if a person has ruled a state or a country for, let's say, 15-20 years, that person has got a lot of experience in running the country or the state, and therefore the person can get elected because owing to his expertise. So argument 2 is strong, but the problem is that we do not have an option that puts argument 1 and 2, right? So neither of the options that we have been given have argument 1 and 2 are strong. So we might have to look for some other thing. Argument 3, no, the population must be free to give the democratic mandate to the person of their choice, even if they win multiple times. So the point is that in this argument, the author is saying that it is the will of the people that should that should be paramount, right? So even if a person is winning multiple times, the population must be free to give democratic mandate to the person, right? Even if they win multiple times. Now, the problem over here is that what if the people are choosing the wrong person again and again, right? So definitely people are free to give the democratic mandate to whoever they want to, but it is very much possible that you can choose a wrong person for 2 or 3 successive terms, and if that happens, then of course by the time the incumbent minister or the incumbent changes or goes, a lot of damage has been done, right? So of course, I'm not saying that population must not be free, but the argument that is there, that is not a strong argument to put a limit on the number of times an individual may be elected as the head of state. And therefore, option A, only argument 1 is strong. right? This was a slightly tricky question. So of course, if you attempted it correctly, please let me know. Next one, very interesting question. Black people are about twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's as white people, but for years, the pharmaceutical industry has mostly left them out of trials and tended to prove new drugs are safe and effective. The trials organized by leading pharmacies for its drug X, the first Alzheimer's drug approved in 2 decades, are among those with the lowest Black representation. Only 19 people. So now the author gives me data, only 19 people of 3,285 participants in its two final stage trials identified themselves as Black. So, a very meager percentage of Black representation, very insignificant percentage of Black representation. There are good reasons to study Alzheimer's in broader populations, all right. The disease is still poorly understood, and the brain pathology and disease genetics may be different in groups with different ancestry. Cool. The question is, which of the following statements can be inferred from the passage? All right. Drug companies find it economical to enroll non-Black participants in the clinical trials. Now, the argument does not say the reason, why are there so less Black people. It can be because of, racial biases. It can be because of any other reason. It can be an economical reason also, but the argument does not state that. The paragraph does not state that. So it's an inference question, And what is an inference? An inference is something that has to be true, that is necessarily true, right? So option one, it is very much possible that, drug companies find it economical to enroll non-Black people. But of course, on the basis of the information that I have been given in the paragraph, it is not absolutely certain. And therefore, option A goes out, right? Option B, Black people are reluctant to enroll in clinical trials. Again, I have not been given the reason behind the meager representation of Blacks in the study, right? In these trials. The approval of drug X will enable pharmaceutical companies to better understand Alzheimer's disease. The answer is no. This completely contradicts what the paragraph is saying, because Black peoples are about twice as likely, and you have not involved Black people in significant numbers. The representation is very, very low. So of course, it will be very difficult for you to better understand Alzheimer's, right? And therefore option C also goes out. So what are we left with? We are left only with option D, which is, by the way, the correct answer. So it was a fairly simple question, not very difficult one, right? 122, 123. This is, I think, a legal reasoning question. All right. All laptops are computers. Some computers are useful. Everything that is useful is precious. 124. All right. So which of the following statements necessarily follows? All right. So let's try to solve one question, right? एक कर लेते हैं यहाँ पे. Okay. So all laptops are computers. So let's say that this is laptop. This is a computer. So all laptops are computers. Some computers are useful. All right. Some computers are useful. Everything that is useful is precious. So I'm drawing a Venn diagram of minimum overlap. All right. Everything that is useful is precious. And last statement is X is a computer. X is a computer. So where is computer ka set? Some compute. All laptops are computers. All right. Okay. All precious objects are useful? No, not necessarily, because here we can see that some are useful, some are not. If X is useful, it must be a laptop. If X is useful, it must be a laptop. Not necessarily, once again, not necessarily. X must be precious. Again, no. Again, no. Again, no. If X is a useful laptop, if X is a useful laptop, it must be precious, yes. Because in that case, X will lie inside you, and whatever lies inside you will also lie inside P. So everything, all X will be P. So every thing that is useful will be precious, right? So if X is useful, then X is also precious, and therefore the correct answer will be option D. Cool. So not a very difficult question, a simple one, a fairly straightforward one. 125. All democratic governments are elected. Some elected governments are fair. All right, let's draw the Venn diagram once again. All democratic governments are elected. Democratic governments. This is elected. Some elected governments are fair. All right. So fair will be somewhere over here. No dictatorships are elected. No dictatorships are elected. So dictatorships will remain completely outside E. So this is dictatorship, right? X is a dictatorship. So this is X, right? X can also, be in intersection with fair, right? X may be a democratic government. No, it cannot be, because whatever is democratic has to be, has to be elected, and D completely lies outside E, and therefore there will be no intersection with D. So X can never be a democratic government. So of course option A goes out. X cannot be fair. No, X, we just saw that X can lie in fair also, right? So X can be fair. X cannot be a democratic government. X cannot be, yes, X cannot be a democratic government. Yes, definitely. X can never be a democratic government, because X can never intersect anything with E. And if it does not intersect with E, it cannot intersect with D also. Therefore, X can never be a democratic government. So the answer is option C, right? All right, 126. So the question is, again, it's an assumption question, right? It's an assumption question. The world sees tech companies as giant with trillion-dollar market values and global networks. Q renewed technology global efforts to undermine their dominance. Shortly after the EU agreed stringent legislation to regulate big tech, the UK this week set out details of its plan. All right. Such moves are a response to big tech's competition stifling scale. Amazon will account for an estimated 39.5% of the US e-commerce market this year. Meta has 3.6 billion users around the world and is the world's largest social media company. Google has 92% of the search engine market, as per the data. This is an assumption question, right? So tech companies with small market shares will go bankrupt and will not survive in the absence of regulatory intervention. Yes, possibly, because the argument states that such moves are a response to big tech's competition stifling scale. So if an intervention is not done timely, it is very much possible that small companies will go bankrupt, right? So it is very much possible. The regulatory efforts will help bolster the market shares of the competitors of Amazon, Meta, and Google. Market shares, not necessarily. It can definitely, whatever regulatory efforts are being taken, that can, that can foster competition, but then it does not mean that the people will suddenly switch from these companies to the competitors, because market share simply means how many people are using your product, right? So it may happen, it may not happen. Therefore, option B is not, a valid assumption. Regulators have been struggling to rein in big tech. They have been struggling to control big tech. Again, no mention about this has been made. It simply states that regulators now have been tightening the noose on these big tech firms. And therefore, option C is again something that is not, necessarily true. Tech companies with large market shares merit regulatory intervention in order to maintain competitive markets. All right. Tech companies with large market shares merit regulatory intervention in order to maintain competitive markets. Uh, 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 D is also fine. D is also a good option. D is also a good option. So between A and D, we have to go for one. Will go bankrupt and not survive in the absence. Tech companies with large market shares merit, definitely. So I think between option A and D, I will go with D, because D sort of, takes the information right out of this argument. Correct. Because it very clearly states that, tech companies or whose market shares are very, very big, they are engaging in, probably, they are stifling the competition, right? And therefore, tech companies with large market shares, it is necessary that regulatory intervention is there, in these companies or in this particular area to maintain competitive markets. So definitely D is definitely a better assumption than A. Therefore, the final answer will be option D. 126 will be option D. 127. Basically, it's again an assumption question. 127. Ethanol can be blended into petrol to reduce the quantity of petrol required to run a vehicle, thus reducing dependency on imported, costly, and polluting petroleum. For India to meet its target of 20% ethanol blended in petroleum, it will have to bring in more land under cultivation. All right. Cool. Take it. India's food security is already under threat. No. It may be detrimental to India's food security. Ethanol target will not only reduce earth warming emissions, it may be detrimental to India's food security and will only help us inch towards energy security. Ethanol target. So India's food security is already under threat. This I cannot say that it is already under threat, right? So it simply means that there is an existing food security threat that India is facing. This is something that the author does not mention. It simply says that it will be harmful for India's food security. So if this is implemented, in order to achieve this ethanol target, it is possible that we will be endangering our own food security, but it does not mean that already in the existing set of circumstances the food security is in danger. So therefore, option A cannot be true. Option B, dearth of renewable energy is hindering the adoption of electric vehicles in the country. Dearth of no. India is lagging behind in achieving its E20 target. Lagging behind. This does not state that it is lagging behind. It simply mentions that if India wants to meet its target of 20%, these are the things that India needs to do. Now, it does not mean that India is already lagging behind, right? So again, this also goes out. So the only option that we are left with is option D. Land to be used for feedstock cultivation has conditions suited for renewable energy generation. Yes, that is, you think about it now, because if certain land has got, conditions that are suitable for energy generation, only in such cases, will that land be used. Otherwise, what is the use of that land, right? So it is very logical that option D will be the answer, correct? The correct answer is option D. That's a legal reasoning question. Next, rather than adopt conventional way of water consumption, we should all start storing our water in copper containers so that we can get the benefits of copper intake. All right. It is now well proven that storing water in a container for 24 to 48 hours is very effective in transmitting some copper content into the water. Assumption. All right. It is safe to drink water out of a copper container. Safe. Storing water. We should drink adequate amounts of water every day, right? Storing water in cup is one of the best ways to ensure that the requisite copper content reaches your body. One of the best ways to ensure this is something I think is a little bit far-fetched. Therefore, I will not be going with option C. Option A stated it is safe to drink water out of a copper container. It is now well proven that storing water in a container for 24 to 48 hours is very effective in transmitting some copper content into the water. It is safe to drink water out of a copper container. Safe to drink. I think yes, because it is. That is why the author is saying that we should be using copper containers for the consumption of water. So it has to be safe. So the correct answer is option A. 130. 130 is again an assumption question. Lot of assumption questions, lot of inference questions. We saw only one strengthening the argument question until now, right? Mental health issues and stress often go together. Finding an emotional release like painting allows a person's mind to relax and let go of all the problems that contribute to a high stress level. When people create something beautiful through painting, they stimulate the creative mind while relieving mental strain. A low stress level leads to a happier, healthier lifestyle and helps improve overall mental health. So which of the following is an assumption? People can have creative mind. Yes, can be. The act of painting involves expressing emotions. This is not an assumption. This will be an inference rather. This can be an inference. Stress reduces the quality of life. Stress reduces quality of life. Quality of life. Again, this is something that can be inferred, but not the assumption. All of the above. People can have a creative mind. So I think the assumption is only option A because B and C are more like inferences but not like assumption, right? An assumption is something that is always unstated, that is always implicit. Therefore, option A is the correct answer. People can have a creative mind, right? 131, very simple question, very straightforward question. I will not be reading now the paragraph to you because I guess you have already understood the paragraph. So we'll simply be evaluating the options. Transport and home heating cannot be powered using coal gas. Cannot be powered using coal gas. This is something that the author does not state. Now the question is, which of the following can be inferred from the passage, right? Transport and home heating cannot be powered using coal and gas. This is something that the author does not say. Air travel and shipping can be decarbonized over the long term using current renewable energy technologies. Can be decarbonized. No, this is again something that goes against what the paragraph states, right? Because the author says that there are certain sectors which cannot be decarbonized. Existing modes of generating renewable energy are insufficient, yes, for decarbonizing cement manufacturing. This is absolutely true. Long haul trucking can only be powered using coal and gas. No, this is not necessarily true. This is not a valid inference because some sectors, there is for some sectors, there is a long way to go before, a renewable energy can be used in those sectors. So of course, we cannot say that long haul trucking cannot be powered using renewable sources. At this point in time, yes, it cannot be, but it can only be powered using coal and gas. And, if you're using some other source of energy, it cannot be powered. This is something that is, very wrong to say. And therefore, option 4 also goes out. Therefore, the correct answer is option C in this case. 132, again, a fairly simple question. Materials, again, I'll not be reading the argument. I'll simply be evaluating the options. Materials for mending the roadways will have to be transported via air. It is not necessary. It can be transported via road also, because the argument puts a condition on the number of people a vehicle can carry, right? It does not say anything about the material, the weight rather, that how much weight can a vehicle carry on the roads. So it is not necessary that can be materials for mending the roadways will have to be transported via air only. So option A is not true. No person or vehicle is entering the town via roadways. No, this is not true again. Because if there are 10 people, definitely they can go using a vehicle. But if there are more than 20 people, let's say 30 people, they cannot go. But 15 can go, 19 can go, 18 also can go. right? So that means people are coming and going if the number is fewer than 20. Therefore, option B also goes out. The villagers would have used trucks to leave the town if roads were not damaged. Yes, this is something that I can definitely say, because the argument says that as a result, right? As a result, so the roads are completely unsuitable, and therefore the villages are being extracted via air. So had the road, not been damaged, the villagers probably would have used trucks, right? So this is, a very, very logical inference to draw. Therefore, the correct answer will be option C, right? 133. Again, a very, very simple question. Definitely, a platter question. Platter means, it was a distribution of free marks over here. The correct answer will be, I think, neither one nor two. None will follow, because it says that Ayurveda is a better form of medicine than allopathy. Allopathy does not have any mention anywhere in the argument. So how can we say allopathy is better or Ayurveda is better? Ayurveda is a neglected science. No, this is also something that the paragraph does not mention, and therefore the correct answer is option D, neither one nor two. Next one. Now, this was a very interesting question. There are many ways to be successful in life. One way is to work hard and be. So the author has prescribed 3 ways, in which you can be successful. Hard work. You can do hard work. You can be street smart. You can also follow the advice of your elders. Now, uh, there are many ways it is possible to be. All right. There are many ways to being successful in life. No. It is possible to be successful without working hard. I think there is some problem with the statement, with statement 1 over here. I do not think that this is the correct statement. There are many ways to being successful in life. It is possible to be successful without working hard. Yes, definitely. Because, if you are street smart, one way is to work hard and the other one is to be street smart, right? So it is possible to be successful without working hard. So I think only option 2 will follow. Option B, right? All right. So that was all from my end. I hope that, you had a great exam, and, most of the answers that you marked were correct. And at the end, I will simply say that, I wish you all the very best for your results, and whatever question that you have marked, I wish that most of you get them correctly. All right. So thank you for being with us. I hope that you like the